Okay, I think it's working, Hopi. Here we go. Let me just pop that on. Alright, what does it look like? I don't know, it's cold, so I'm sitting in the sun, which maybe isn't the best, because I can't see my own screen. Alright, Hopi, you can chill out. You can chill out. Let me just, maybe I'm too much in the sun. Hopi, you can stay in the sun. I'll just bring this closer. Alrighty. So, live stream, which I was a little bit wishy-washy about whether I was going to do this one. That's not that bad. I don't know, there's so much reflection that I can't really see what I'm doing. Yeah, so I didn't give a whole lot of warning about this live stream, so I don't know who's going to turn up. I sort of hinted that I might do it, but I wasn't really committing. What was the thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, so I was going to make a video. I had filmed a video. I think I filmed it on Monday, but then I ran out of time to edit it. Can't remember why now. Monday might have been when that false copyright claim hit, and then Tuesday's when I resolved it, and then yesterday I was working, and today tired because I'm recovering from working. Anyway, oh my god, my tripod is doing that syncing thing. Let me just tighten it up. Yeah, so I did film a video and I was going to upload it, but now I'm in a different mood and I don't want to upload it, and I had to edit some stuff I was going to edit some stuff to try and get it to make sense, but yeah, I decided it's not really something I want to put live, but I might put it on Patreon, because every now and then I put like extra content on Patreon, so if you're one of my patrons, maybe I'll upload that there. With the Patreon thing, that, like, you know, I'm a little bit lazy about how I do it, so if access to everything is just $1, you can always put more on if you want, but yeah, I can't be bothered to do tiers and all that. Hey Charles, how you going? I sort of wasn't sure if I was gonna do a live stream today, but here I am. It gave me some incentive to get dressed because I was just sort of chilling in my pajamas. God, it's been so cold in Sydney, so that's why I was sort of sitting in the sun, and I hope he's still sunny. Hope he's like, don't touch me, Mum, I was comfortable. All right. Anyway, yeah, so I filmed a video on Monday, and that's, yeah, here in Northern Hemisphere, eh? Opposite weather. Yeah, I mean, Sydney never gets that cold, but the Blue Mountains, which is maybe 1 to 2 hours drive from here, they got snow, and I think there are a few other places that got snow. Of course, the Snowy Mountains got snow, that's why they're called the Snowy Mountains. But yeah, no, so close to Sydney. It happens from time to time, but it's always a little bit of a holy crap, it's snowing thing. Yeah, so it's been really cold, and I didn't want to get out of bed. I don't know, yesterday at work, I had so many layers of like Uniqlo, Heat Tech, and whatever, and it was still cold, and about lunchtime, my boss is like, it snowed here once in my life in '89. Oh my gosh, that's a long time ago. Whereabouts are you again? I forget. There's a bit of delay in comments usually. But I forget whereabouts exactly you are. Oh, Florida. Okay, yeah, Florida is not somewhere I think of when I think of snow in America. Yeah, I think it has snowed in Sydney, but maybe not in my lifetime. I don't remember any snow ever in Sydney, and I've lived here my entire life, so yeah. It would be pretty unusual if it actually came here. Blue Mountains, like, it's kind of Sydney, but it's also kind of not, and it's up there, well, it's up a massive mountain, so, yeah. Anyway, so rough week, and the video that I did on Monday is probably not going to go up publicly. I think if I upload that, it'll just be Patreon, and I'm not going to bother editing in the beginning. In the beginning, I was going to edit in my Facebook posts with like narration, and then I couldn't be bothered to go in the program and like edit that to work, so I can go and read it now instead, like read it live or whatever, but I had a really bad day, and that sort of messed me up for this week, and that's also why I wasn't sure if I was going to live stream. So yeah, frustrating. But so what happened? Well, like, I sort of have this idea that I might do a video on like two different types of darkness, like inward and outward darkness, because I feel like that's got a big impact on my life. So last week was more of the outward darkness thing, and then this week was more of the inward darkness thing. So I think actually Sunday is probably when it started to happen. So Sunday afternoon, I was starting to feel really empty, and emptiness is not a good feeling. I don't remember exactly what I wrote. I have to go in the other room and like read it off Facebook, if anyone's interested. But yeah, I started feeling really empty, and you know, I tried to fill it with other things, but it wasn't really happening. So yeah, I was a little bit concerned that I might get a little bit depressed from that. But then that was Sunday, and then Monday, I woke up and just for no reason felt really, really awful. And so about 8:30, I'd gotten out of bed and went to the kitchen to make some tea, and I just started crying in the kitchen. And I'm like, where is this coming from? You know, like my life's not anything special, but it's not bad. It's not like I'm struggling for anything really apart from like purpose. But I hadn't really been spending a lot of time on the existential thing. So yeah, I don't know. And like I just woke up. I think I was sort of a little bit of awake before that and sort of drifting in and out of sleep, and thinking about stuff, but nothing depressing. Oh, you too, hey. God, it is just stayed in bed till 6. Stayed in bed till 6, like 6 at night. That's a long time. Yeah, no, Monday I just felt really bad, so I spent the whole day just trying to distract myself and not really doing much of anything. And then Monday night, that false copyright guys rejected my dispute, and then I got really angry. And see, angry is an example of the outward darkness thing, and I find that kind of outward darkness can actually be helpful in distracting me from the inward darkness, because like instead of just like feeling bad and whatever, you're projecting that away from you at other people, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like that kind of helped. I was towards the end of Monday. I keep buying stuff to try and cheer me up and fight off depression. Yeah, see that I don't feel like that works. Because buying things, it feels good at the time. I think we have an instinct when we get things that probably gives off dopamine or whatever, but it's not a long-lasting thing because you get bored and, you know, after a while things don't really do very much. Some things can entertain you for longer, but just broken set. Oh, yeah. But buying stuff doesn't really work. You know, because they're just things, and that's why I think that's one of the reasons I haven't bought a lot of things for a few years. You know, I used to buy a lot of knickknacks, and that's all on my shelves. And you know, I've been meaning to do more shelf tours, but I have to dust everything and then figure out what I want to say about stuff and try not to make it go on and on for ages. But yeah, I stopped buying stuff a few years back just because, I don't know, I like, on the one hand I stopped wanting things, on the other hand, you know, they just stop having an effect. So yeah, they're not a great way to get out of things. Yeah, Monday afternoon, I was starting to feel a bit better. I think after I distracted myself and once my brain had really properly started going. So I think like in the morning might have been some kind of chemical thing, because I am prone to chemical, like biological depression. So maybe something in my system was just off. I don't know. It's kind of surprising and annoying, because like just coming out of nowhere and feeling awful like that, it catches you off guard and it's kind of awful. Why is it so hard to bring up the, hang on. There we go. Saving for a car, but had a chance to see my favorite Japanese band. Oh, see, like when you're paying for an experience, that's not so bad, because like, you know, it's an experience and you get memories and stuff from that. And you know, you can actually go and enjoy yourself. And so generally, I mean, I don't know, I don't go out and have many experiences. Now paying for once and save the money. Yeah, I mean, you gotta sort of figure out your priorities, hey? Yeah, no, I don't know. I haven't been to a lot of things lately. I just don't really feel like it. Yeah, they say experiences are better than things. So, yeah, although like when the case of a car can open up your possibilities if you haven't had a car or if like your old car is dying, a new car lets you go places and can give you more flexibility in your life in some ways, although they are expensive and expensive to buy and then to maintain and then to run. So yeah, I've got no desire for a car of my own, but I've got, I can borrow the family car occasionally if we plan it well. But generally, I don't like driving. I find it to be kind of one of those annoying social experiences, except unlike trying to navigate a crowd, you can't really talk to people in other cars. Um, like you can hope that they use their indicators to say what they're going to do, but a lot of them don't, or they think that they can indicate while they're moving, and you're like, well, thanks, if you could have mentioned that before. To some extent, like cars have a sort of body language. You can kind of tell what someone might be about to do by the way they're driving, but it's not really reliable, and I don't know, I just don't like it. And Mum's like, you think that driving is social? I'm like, yes, it's social. You're surrounded by people. It just happens that those people are surrounded by metal bubbles. Um, I don't know. Maybe she doesn't see things my way. Anyway, I mean, sidetrack. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, Monday afternoon. Monday afternoon, yeah, no, I did start to feel better. So I wrote another Facebook post, um, trying to chill people out because there were quite a few people who got worried about my post in the morning when I was talking about crying in the kitchen for no good reason. Just that I was feeling awful. And like it actually feels kind of painful. That's one of the weird things. Like it's meant to be a mental thing, but it physically has other pain things. So yeah. Um, but I did start to feel better in the afternoon as that wore off. Venting on Facebook helps to just sort of like stop, I guess, because my brain also has to process what I'm feeling into language, and that kind of distracts from the feeling of the emotion. And then what I just distracted myself for the rest of the day. I was talking to a few people because people were messaging me, making sure I was okay. Also had a phone call from a relative. Um, and yeah, and then towards the end of the day, I noticed that Believe Music had rejected my dispute of their copyright claim, their false copyright claim. And I'm just like, what? Like when the copyright claim happened, I didn't mind so much because it's Content ID, which is their algorithm, and that's not always accurate. Like it's trying to detect what the music is. It's a machine. It can't really tell if two things are exactly the same. So, okay, fair enough. But then they presumably had a human review this at the end of their 30-day period, and they still sent it back to me. And I'm just like, what? So I got a bit angry, and adrenaline and heart pumping and all that kind of stuff, which like I never expect to get such strong reactions to things. It's the same when like, if I have an argument about a topic that's a bit sensitive, some kind of political thing, and then some idiot comes on and says something really stupid in response, I can get quite a reaction, which is probably a reason that I've sort of stopped doing too much political stuff on Facebook and whatever, because I just don't want to have to deal with that. But yeah, they're these Believe Music guys. I had quite the physical response to that. Um, so Tuesday, I pretty much spent the whole day thinking about that. Although I did go out with Mum and we did some shopping for winter stuff. So and we had noodles, udon. That was good. Um, but yeah, then the rest of the day was sort of distracted by that, looking up articles on content claims on YouTube and all that. And in the community tab, I've listed the things that I did to try and get my rights back. Because I don't make money from YouTube. I don't get monetized. Whoops, watch out, Hopi. Um, I'm not monetized, so it's not about money. It's that I don't want some soulless corporation making money off me for something that they played no part in, that they don't deserve. So I was like, guys, and you know, I was ready to go all the way to legal something and try and do as much damage, but thankfully I don't know exactly what fixed it, but on Tuesday night that got resolved. So yeah, I didn't end up being able to work on that video that I was gonna post. And then yesterday I was working and it was so cold. I mean, I think Monday was probably the colder day, but I wasn't really paying attention to weather reports because I've just been so tired. Yeah, my God, if they hadn't resolved that, I would have been so pissed off. It probably would have distracted me for ages as well. Oh man. Because they sound like the way they run things sounds heaps dodgy, and they've actually got on their website a form specifically for YouTube things that they've messed up. Oh yeah, Doctor Who, exterminate. I don't know if that's showing the right way around or if it's backwards. I'm not sure what you guys are seeing with the live stuff. Um, mm, I've got a little Dalek on a shelf that's it's got a little sensor, so you put it on your desk and it roams around, and when it gets to the edge of the desk, it's supposed to turn around and not fall off. Oh, it's the right way up. Awesome. Yeah, no, it's showing me everything mirrored, so I wasn't sure. But yeah, no, my little Dalek dude. I haven't turned him on in ages though, so I don't know if he has any batteries. But yeah, I got it a long time ago. So if it does have batteries, they've probably exploded by now. I should probably check that. I'm really bad with checking batteries in old gadgets. Yeah, anyway, so this week was the complete opposite mood of last week, and I haven't gotten anything done really. Yeah, what did I even do on the weekend? Oh, Sunday we had lunch at this Japanese place in Crow's Nest. They do like this sous vide style of tonkatsu. It's really interesting, different texture. Like Mum makes really good tonkatsu, but this place, it's just like it's so different. So yeah, really interesting. What's it called? Is that Toshiya or is that a different place? I don't remember. I don't pay attention all the time. And then Saturday, what did I do? I don't know. My memory's a little bit fuzzy of the things that I do during the week. I think maybe it's because like every day is pretty similar, so it all kind of just smooshes together. So yeah, a bit of a wasted week, unfortunately, which is annoying because last week I was so sure that I was gonna get working on things again, and then yeah, random mood swing. Yeah, I'm not actually a huge fan of sushi. I don't like the raw fish so much. Like these days, I will eat a bit of sashimi occasionally, but only if I'm with someone and they're like, "Hey, try this." It's not something I'd order on purpose. I just never really got into the raw fish kind of thing. And then also, Mum, I think she's not so keen on non-Japanese fish, so maybe that's one reason we don't have as much of it here. Oh, I hate tuna. I can't do tuna. Although I don't know if tuna sashimi maybe, but I'm not a tuna person at all. Let's bring this closer so I can lean on it. If it's a fish, like, why not try things such as chicken sushi? Yeah, no, I have other sushi sometimes, but like, you know, it's not like, you know, it kind of limits you because there's not a whole lot of things, especially if you go to a shop for sushi. There's only a certain number of things that they will swap things out for. So, well, I really like tamago sushi, with the egg on top, and you know, it's got the little seatbelt around it. Those I like. And then there's a few others, but yeah, I haven't been to sushi in ages. There's a few good places around, but yeah, no. Tonkatsu and stuff like that, you know, like non-sushi kinds of Japanese food. Takoyaki, that's cool. I don't know. I'm not really that hungry right now, so it's hard for me to think about food. I find it easier to think of food when I'm actually hungry. But no, I just had a little bit of a nibble, so I'm good. I'm just having some tea. Anyway, so yeah, last week, I really thought I was going to get moving on stuff. Hibachi. I don't know hibachi. They just do hibachi in Jacksonville. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that term. Maybe I know it by a different name. Sometimes I find it hard to translate different things if I learn something. Like, um, oh, at that udon place, at Marukame Udon's my favorite one in Chatswood. They have korokke, and it's hard for me to think of korokke as anything but korokke because in English, I think it's croquette, which I think is from French anyway, and to me it sounds really weird. It's like a potato cake kind of thing. Um, yeah, but I don't know what hibachi is. Maybe I learned it under a different name, I'm not sure. Um, yeah, but I think that's kind of a different thing. Why did my brain think of that? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so what's going on? So this week was definitely more of an inward darkness week. Hey, reflected tone. Yeah, I've been slacking off. Hey, I was sort of just talking about that in the beginning of the video, but to recap, this week was sort of really bad mood, like like depression-ish. I had one day where and you know, like I've been depressed so many times now. Sorry, I'm sniffling because it's fucking, I'm getting a bit hot actually. Let me take off some of this. You can see my messy hair because I kind of just like rolled out of bed, and you know, I had a shower yesterday and haven't straightened it, so it's all like because I just can't be bothered. Anyway, no, what this week? Yeah, no, I've been depressed so many times that I can kind of tell the difference between just being a little bit sad and then the feeling that is depression. I don't know if this is the same for other people, but for me, there's a distinction. So Monday morning was definitely a depression-like feeling rather than just a sad feeling, and I was just sort of randomly crying in the kitchen about nothing in particular. It's just like, it's like when you wake up with a cold, you know, and you seemed fine yesterday, but this morning you have a cold. It was like that for me, except with mental health. Um, I woke up with a mental cold or something. Fortunately, unlike a cold, it kind of lessened towards the end of the day. I don't think I've ever recovered from a cold within the same day. I guess there were, like, you know, the well, I something I've wondered about, like, you know, with increasing awareness of mental health, like, what if one day we get to a point where you can legitimately call in sick because you've woken up with mental illness type stuff, you know? I think I might have written a poem about it a long time ago. I don't know. It's an idea that's kind of stuck in my head for a number of years, because it's something that happens to me. And yeah, no, the emptiness. Sunday night, I was feeling empty. Um, and yeah, I've got the description on Facebook. I don't know, maybe I should have printed some of that stuff out so I don't have to go in there, because I've spent so much time in my room, and it's just not good for me to be there all the time. I need to come out, and the sun's moved, but get me some sun. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit insane today. Something like that, hey? Because it wasn't logical or anything. Like, sure, okay, I felt a bit empty on Sunday, but to suddenly just be crying in the kitchen, I don't know. I feel like there are different types of feelings that qualify as depression. Yeah, there probably are. I mean, you can actually qualify for depression without feeling sad if you're showing enough of the physical symptoms. So there's that. Just for like my normal experience of depression, because I think I have had the not sad version of depression, but it's harder to identify. But otherwise, generally, I sort of have this familiar feeling. And the dangerous thing about that is sometimes I become convinced that that's the real me, and it's has in the past sort of led me to wallow in it more than I should have. Yeah, so it kind of changes the way you think. And actually, yeah, there's some psychological research that it even changes your access to different memories. So when you're depressed, you're more likely to remember depressing things. But yeah, I don't know. The fact that it happened in the morning suggests that it's sort of linked to my tendency to melancholic depression, which is the biological one, because mornings do tend to be worse. And I guess you can kind of tell that it's biological because at that point you haven't really had a chance to think properly. Like I was sort of dreaming before that in this sort of half awake, whatever. But when I actually properly woke up, that's when I started suddenly feeling really awful. And not about anything in particular, you know. Usually when I'm depressed, I'll be thinking existential kind of stuff. Or maybe like my tea's getting cold. Let me finish my tea just quickly, otherwise I'll get sad that I forget about it and then I'll be drinking cold tea. All right, we're good. I'll leave that there because you like the cup. Yeah, anyway, no, sometimes, yeah, there's just nothing in particular going on in my head and I just feel really awful. But I think that was just a one-off sort of thing and nothing to really worry about because it lifted as the day went on and, you know, I guess started thinking about actual things because if you remember the week before, last week I was actually feeling much more optimistic and like, yeah, I'm gonna write music and do artsy stuff and whatever. And I still, in my head, throughout the depression kind of stuff, in my head, I was like, what about all these things that I've been planning to do? Like, I'm still gonna do these things, right? I'm still interested. What's that? Microphone is so clear and high in quality. Oh, I'm just using the phone's microphone. I have noticed that this phone's pretty good for it. So I'm using a Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. And I've noticed when I go to gigs, it usually films pretty well. Because I think they must have some kind of limiter in it so that when it's really loud, it drops the volume and stops it from distorting, which I didn't know was in this phone, but I think that's what it is. It's just occasionally, it freaks out a bit because I think it's trying to compensate. I think if you watch some of my videos, when I first start filming, often the sound is a little bit different, like there's no bass in it, and it takes a while to ramp into the good sound. And I think that's because they must have some kind of processor in it that's adjusting the levels, like listening to what audio is coming in and then adjusting it to make it better. And sometimes it takes a while to kick in. So I have noticed occasionally at gigs, if the bass is really loud, it'll just drop out completely halfway through the video. And so there's a couple of gigs I filmed last year when I was doing that assignment for uni, where the bass just disappears. And yeah, I think that's because the phone has misinterpreted what it's hearing and just cut it all as some kind of noise that's not meant to be there. Which really, like, some venues need to turn the bass down. If you're going deaf or something, maybe their sound people don't realize they've listened to too much bass and killed off the little bass things in their ears. I don't know, but there's a point where there's just too much bass and it actually makes you feel physically ill, but whatever. I'm not their sound engineer. I can't tell them anything, can I? Yeah, and like, you know, the shape of the room is sometimes not great for the amount of bass they're trying to pump out. And if you have a sub under the stage, like, no, that's not where you should be putting the sub. But anyway, what tangent am I on now? ah, yeah, no, I think I still have a little bit of optimism simultaneously that I was having that depression, but thankfully the depression thing seems to be gone, but I'm always a little bit wary because, like, I don't know where that came from, so I'm a little bit worried that it'll jump me again by surprise, but I haven't felt that really terrible emptiness. Like, it's not just emptiness on its own, because the emptiness also comes with its own terrible feeling, and I don't know how to describe it very well. I have a lot of psychological things that give me physical feelings that I can't describe. Or at least they have the illusion of being physical. There's a chance that they're not actually. But yeah, no, it was a specific type of emptiness I was feeling on Sunday night, so maybe I need to take that as a warning sign that shit's gonna go down in my head, but disassociation. I'm not sure what you mean by disassociation. As far as I know, I don't dissociate from anything. Although, let me have a think. I mean, there have been times in my life where I felt like I was sort of just watching myself do stuff. That might count. Might have been when I was on meds though, I'm not entirely sure. There was like when I first tried Zoloft, towards the end of that, I was just feeling like a zombie. Um, oh, disconnecting from my emotions. Um, I don't know. I don't know that it's a disconnection from my emotions. It's like a combination of my emotions with a physical feeling. I don't know. Um, Yeah, I mean, one of the weird things that happened on Monday was I also got some dizziness, and there. So one of my relatives called me, wondering if it was like in your ear. Your ear is where balance tends to be. Like it's there's these little loops of fluid, and that's what helps you balance and know which way you're turning and all that kind of stuff. And there's like this little crystal sort of thing. Um, is it calcium or something else? I don't remember, and that can get dislodged, and then you have to do like this weird head shaky thing to get it back into position. Um, and then so she wondered if maybe I had that, and then another friend sent me a message about maybe it's something to do with vitamin D. Um, but see, the thing is, like, I think maybe people overinterpreted what I meant when I wrote down that I was feeling dizzy. I think that dizziness was just caused by how extreme my emotions were. Because, I wasn't getting the kind of dizziness where I turn my head and then my head's like keeps spinning in there or anything. I wasn't getting the dizziness that comes like from, I have low blood pressure, so if that's bad when I stand up, sometimes like my vision goes a bit dark and I get lightheaded. It wasn't anything like that. It was just this general feeling of dizziness, and I felt like I had to lie down. So Monday, I actually did go back to bed for a few hours. I don't think I got up until like after lunch, maybe. I don't even remember. Um, and I was still a bit dizzy after that, but I think as my emotions settled, the dizziness went away. So I think it was just like some really extreme kind of thing I was feeling that completely threw off my whole system. And yeah, so um, the level of the emotion leading to like physical things like that, I don't know. Like it happens, but I don't know exactly what caused that this time because I don't usually get dizzy when I'm feeling that. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure what that was. Kind of interesting. But if I have a sort of biological depression or tendency towards biological depression, I guess it's not surprising that I can have other physical issues that come about because if it's like I don't know, some kind of hormone or I don't know. I don't know what caused it. Oh my god, what are those dogs doing? Uh, so yeah, it could have just been something biological in there. Like maybe, I mean, I've been struggling with sleep for the last little while, so maybe there's something in there that messed me up. I don't know. But yeah, it was just kind of a dramatic change. What? What? I don't know what they're woofing about. Gut bacteria, yeah. Oh, hang on, I'm just gonna see what he's woofing about. Alrighty. So you weren't lying, aren't you? Alright, so that was just a dog food delivery for Marley, so I wasn't expecting that. So at least the dogs weren't lying. What was I talking about? Also, I'm gonna take off. I'm wearing like funny, fluffy purple socks today. I think my cousin from Japan must have got them for me. There's this funny character, I think it's called like Moomy. Oh, it's on its side, but I can't be bothered to shift it. And they got this little fluffy stuff. I don't know, I was so cold this morning, I didn't want to get out of bed, so yeah, I've sort of overdone all the fluffiness, haven't I? Anyway, what was I talking about? I'm really bad at remembering when I don't have any particular agenda. Something to do with being depressed or feeling depressed and feeling things. Hey, did I miss anything while I ran away? Oh, I'm adorable. Oh, oh man. Um, yeah, no, anyway, well, I'm doing fine now. Haven't managed to make myself do anything exciting though, because as I said before, Monday was recovering from whatever happened in the morning. Tuesday, shopping with mum, but also like just getting angry at that false copyright claim. Because like I put a lot of work into those bonsai videos. That was my freaking HSC assignment. I have a year's worth of, I've even got the little portfolio that they made me take notes on for like the whole year of working on that. And I did really well in that assignment, so, which is good because it wasn't really my strength. My strengths were maths and science. So to do well in design for me back then, especially, yeah, that was pretty cool. So anyway, what? Yeah, and then yesterday I was working, and then today I'm recovering from work, so I haven't really gotten anything done, but I still feel like I want to write music and do art and so on. But all of that, all of the stuff that I want to do, I think comes from the outward darkness thing. So the inward darkness, depression, and just feeling like shit, that stops me from doing things. But the thing that makes me actually get out and be more creative is the more outward darkness. So things like anger. So you're directing darkness at someone else. And actually, I found that a bit of a strategy that used to work a long time ago when I was depressed. I don't think it works anymore because, you know, in the 2 years that I was, two or so years that I was depressed most recently, I got angry at a lot of things, but it wasn't really helping me snap out of it. But yeah, in the past, like, finding something to be angry about would help me like take the darkness from attacking me and send it at someone else. Maybe that's just the way I work, but yeah. And then also like with destroyer related things, that I think is what really was starting to kick off the feeling to be creative again. The problem with that though, if you watched my Let's Therapy video, like the whole thing, especially like I wonder what that looks like to someone who hasn't been following me very long, because there are a lot of references to past videos and particularly what's the there's one video where I did a whole lot. Anyway, yeah, I wonder what that looks like to someone else. But anyway, like those chain emails but evil. Wait, what are you talking about, chain emails? Aren't all those chain emails evil? Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm not surprised you didn't get it because I've sort of been reluctant to talk about this kind of stuff because it's just sort of weird and stupid. Um, in like I have a tendency to divide my thinking into different parts. Like I can hold more than one opinion on things. And it's just like which perspectives I want to choose that I start thinking. So I think this is why I get into send your negative emotions. Send your negative emotions to 10 people in the next 5 minutes, or else. I like that one. But chain emails are all kind of awful, don't you think? Like, there's one person on Facebook who, like, I know she doesn't watch my videos, so it's fine, but I had to mute her messages because, like, she's just constantly sending chain messages and apparently believing them. I don't know, and I'm just like, why? That's, oh my god, no, don't do it. And I even told her, stop sending me this stuff, and she keeps sending it to me, and I'm just like, why? Stop it. Anyway, yeah, no, chain emails make me angry as well. Where was I? Oh, yeah, the Let's Therapy video. How do I explain that? Because, I don't know, I have to, like, go way back, but yeah, I don't know where to start with that. I think like there's two things that make it hard to talk about. Is one, a sort of ongoing, somewhat irrational embarrassment over it all. And then the second thing is that it's just like, it's such a long story and kind of complicated. So it's like, where do I start? And I realize that like I can simplify and summarize things, but my brain has this tendency to want to over clarify everything. So what, like the other day on Facebook, like after we went shopping for warm things, I was writing on Facebook like, it's actually been years before I've bought any warm stuff. And then my brain is sitting there. I'd be terrified to open up about that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's weird opening up about the odd things that go on in your brain. I think odd things go on in all of our brains. But because we don't know what other people are thinking, it can be hard to. But yeah, no. With the being too specific thing, I was writing about it's been years since I've bought anything warm, and then my brain's like, well, that's not entirely true because just before you went to Japan at the end of 2017, you did go and buy some heat tech, and I'm like. But if I explain that, this post is gonna be super long and maybe I shouldn't. And also, like, I lost one of those heat tech anyway, so, you know, it's only the pants that I've got. So does that really count as me having bought warm stuff in the, I don't know. And I just sort of was paralyzed for a moment as I wondered, how much should I actually write? How much detail? Like, does it matter if what I'm writing is slightly inaccurate? If I get the main point across? I don't know, my brain is just sort of over-analyzing, and I think that's one of the reasons that I write a lot, like really long posts on Facebook. This is in my private Facebook, so if you're not friends with me on that, and I'm a bit picky about who I add as friends, but if you're not friends with me on Facebook, you might not know, but I write like 1,000-word posts every now and then. I'm not as bad as I used to be, but I still do it from time to time, especially when I get angry about something. But yeah, wanting to be specific and accurate is one of the reasons those posts gets big. And it's the same with like when I make videos, I want to try and cover everything. And then, you know, if you watch like some of the videos I've made, I'll have a really long video and then say I'm going, and then suddenly think of the thing that I've forgotten and then tack it on to the end of the video. And then suddenly think of another thing, but I've already uploaded the video, so I'll add it in the comments or something. It's just because my brain's like, no, you have to be accurate. And then the other part of me is like, but no one cares if you're 100% accurate, like only the most annoying nitpickers. But this is the internet and people will nitpick like crazy on the internet, so if you miss something, bruh. And yeah, I'm sort of just like, oh, how do I sort this out? One of the ways that I handle that is by never claiming to be an expert, because you know, like there's always, or like not claiming that something I'm saying is definitive, because there's always going to be something that I'm missing. And like there are people out there who claim to be experts and claim to be giving you like the answers, but it's so hard to cover every detail. And one of the things people on the internet like to do is like, if you give a metaphor for something, there'll always be like some specific cases where that metaphor doesn't work, and they'll point out all those. And it's like, okay, yes, but the point of it was this. Like, you're missing the point by being such a nitpicker. You know, like, you know what the point being made was. Of course, there's gonna be exceptions. Anyway, rant. That's a rant. But, yeah, I also just like, I don't want to give people the wrong idea about some things. So it's like, if I don't word it right, people will find things a little bit difficult. I understand that wanting to clarify for any possible interpretation, every possible exception and condition. Yeah, basically that. It's difficult. So when I'm talking about some of the more sensitive psychology things to me, it's sort of like, well, here is a way that I could simplify it. But then that is probably going to lead people to think A, B, C, D, E, F, and I'm going to have to clarify each one of those things. And also, like, how do I even structure this so that it makes sense and people don't get confused? Because another thing that's difficult is I have a problem where I have a tendency to assume that other people know what I know. So when I'm saying something, if you needed prior knowledge to understand what I'm talking about now, I have a tendency to assume that you already know that prior knowledge, which isn't true. And it's a problem I've had since I was in primary school. I remember maths is something that's come easy to me for most of my life. I mean, these days I'm too lazy for it, but in school I was really good at maths. And I also always struggled to understand why people couldn't answer what seemed to me to be quite simple questions. And it took me a long time to realize that actually people have different levels of knowledge and different levels of skills in things. Yeah, I don't know, because especially when I was that young, it was rare for anyone my age to know something that I didn't already know, because we're all going to the same classes and whatever, and the internet wasn't really a thing when I was growing up. So, mm, it's a tendency that I've carried forward. Um, and maybe that's also one of the reasons that sometimes I feel like it's not worth exploring a topic. It's not what it looks like. Yeah. Oh dear. But yeah, maybe this is one of the reasons sometimes I avoid certain topics. Like I feel like everyone already knows it. What's the point in me explaining it? But I am starting to realize that like people in my audience, so you guys and the other people who watch my videos, may not necessarily watch the other videos that I watch or read the articles that I read or whatever. Like, you know, everyone has different lives. Not everyone is like me, sort of sitting on the internet just sponging up all this kind of information and overthinking everything. So maybe if I do approach a topic, like there might actually be someone who's hearing it for the first time and they might actually find it interesting and I might not be boring them to death with it. So, but it's hard to know, especially because like, I don't really know who my audience is. There's you guys who say hello and all that, but there's a bunch of people who like I never hear from and I'm like, who are these mystery people watching my stuff? I don't know. So yeah, it's hard to gauge like what kinds of people are watching me and what they know and what they're interested in. So, and then those of you who do talk, you tend to just tell me to make videos about whatever I want. So that's what I end up doing. Why not? But yeah, it's hard to know what I should explain and what I shouldn't explain. Like that, do you remember that video I did about why New South Wales Labor lost the election? I know a lot of you guys are from overseas and probably had no idea what the hell I was talking about. In that case, like, I don't know, sometimes it's hard because like I made it for friends on Facebook who are more left-leaning and were struggling to understand what's going on in New South Wales. But I realized my main audience is probably like, what is this? It's so hard trying to balance everyone's knowledge of different things. And then now if I talk about sensitive things, like if I talk about where the destroyer part of my username comes from, I'm going to end up being repetitive to like my hardcore audience who've been following me for like 10 years or so. How long have I been on YouTube now? It's probably more like, oh, it'll be 10 and a half years. I think I started in October 2008 maybe. Or was it? No, September? I don't even remember anymore. My first video is still out there somewhere. And in that Let's Therapy video, there are flashes of my very first video blog. And so yeah, all those flashes are me, just in case anyone's looking at like, who is this chick? Because I've changed a little bit. A little bit. I've changed a lot. I also had, did I have braces back then or just the expander plate? I don't remember. I had a lot of dental work done and it started in 2008 and went until 2014. So yeah, wow, my poor little jaw. Anyway, what was I meant to be talking about? Oh, was I meant to be explaining the Let's Therapy video? I think so. Huh, where do I start? Because that came from I guess an outward darkness kind of thing. I feel like the destroyer thing has influenced like a massive part of my life, is the main reason I do most of the creative things I do. Without that, what am I? I don't know who I am. Oh, and see, I'd have to explain. Would I have to explain? I don't know. What's another topic so I can maybe think about how I'm going to explain that at some point. But no, other videos I've been wanting to doing. Oh my god, what's happened to my brain? Has the video looped or you're repeating these things again? I'm probably repeating stuff because I'm trying to work out what what I was even talking about, because I go on tangents and sometimes like I go off topic and I forget what I'm talking about, so I have to repeat to myself, and that's why like that's one of the difficult things about being live is especially with the interactivity, is I don't know what I'm going to be talking about in each video, so I don't have like any list of stuff to keep me on topic, or I haven't really thought about it. I'm just talking off the top of my head. So Yeah, sometimes I have to repeat stuff just to myself so that I can remember where I'm even up to. Um, yeah, I hope that explains that. Um, Anyway, no, I want to do a video about the Jedi Path book because I finished that and, I kind of want to review it before I move on to, what's the next book? The is it the Book of Sith is the next one that I'm going to read. So, yeah, but I've got some more punk rave stuff coming, so I don't know when that'll arrive. Monday is a public holiday, so I won't be able to film then, and I won't get deliveries then anyway. So it might be Tuesday that I film that. But if it doesn't arrive, maybe I film the Jedi Path instead. And then Wednesday I'm working again, and then Thursday I'll probably should I live stream every Thursday? I'm not sure. I think maybe I should because it helps me get out of bed. Depends on how tired I am though, because depending on what we're working on. What's public holiday for? I didn't know there was one coming up. I think it's the Queen's birthday, but it's sometimes the states are different. I think you're in Queensland, and maybe they have different public holidays. For New South Wales, it's a public holiday. So Queen's birthday, even though it's not really her birthday, so I'm not sure. Late Saturday is good for people of different time zones, such as Germany and America. Yeah, Saturday I can't really live stream though, because there's people around the house, and I feel weird about talking to a camera when people are around. That's why I always do it at like 2 o'clock in the middle of the week. And then also I've got viewers in Europe, and later in the day, I think it's around lunchtime in Europe. It's impossible to find a live streaming time that's good for everyone, because yeah, there's people from all around the globe. That's what I was saying about my audience being like all kinds of people, and I don't really know what people want to watch and all that kind of stuff and what their experience is, for example. But yeah, time zone is another problem when it comes to the live streaming thing. Yeah, and then I gotta say, YouTube's statistics are no help with any of this because for ages now they've been saying that my audience is 100% male, and I'm like, I know for a fact that that's not true. I meant Sundays, meaning also because it's the weekend here, but for people a day behind. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I still wouldn't do it on a Sunday, because I mean, sometimes the family goes out and I might stay home, but it's hard to predict who's going to be coming in and out at what time. So, whereas during the week, I can look at the calendar and see who's working, and then I've sort of gotten into the pattern of when Mikey's going to get home. So today's Thursday, so I've worked out that Monday is when Mikey tends to come home early, and so probably better if I'm going to live stream on a Monday, it's going to be earlier. Same if I'm going to be filming a regular video, it's better to do it earlier, or just not do it. Thursday though, he does tend to be later, so I can start at 2 p.m. and I can go till about 4ish, possibly later. It depends a bit on, my battery lasts about 2 hours or so before it gets low and starts complaining. That's actually one of the reasons I chose this phone. Like, I know you're saying the microphone's good, but I actually chose it for battery life because I got it around when Pokemon Go came out, and they were also starting to shut down 2G telephone connection in Australia. So I had been hanging on to my Nokia 3315, which is like one model after the Nokia 3310 indestructible phone, so it looks basically the same, functions basically the same. Yeah, and so I was like, okay, I want to play this Pokemon game because I was depressed and needed exercise, and I also want something that's like as close to my Nokia in terms of battery and all that as possible. So yeah, I was looking up phones, and at the time the Galaxy S7 Edge had like the best battery life. Yeah, and it's in an OtterBox case so that if I drop it, it's not gonna, crack on me. It's still going strong. Because because I had a dumb phone for so long, if someone dropped their smartphone, I would drop my dumb phone next to theirs and be like, oh no, sort of making fun of it. So there's probably a lot of dropped phone karma ready to come my way. Not that I believe in karma or anything, but also not having practice keeping a phone safe, I thought I've got to go all the way and protect this thing as best I can. Um, yeah, no, and that's probably why I suck at smartphone things. I hate typing on a touch screen. My God, even like the buttons on the Nokia are so much easier because I could do it without even looking. But I still prefer a proper keyboard to type. I hate typing on a touch screen. It's terrible. It takes so long and you have to look at it. And, I'm sorry, my face is really ugly. You could turn this into a Snapchat filter, hey? I don't even need a Snapchat filter to look awful. Wait, what? Oh, I'm a little bit tired, so it's probably another reason why my brain gets repetitive because it's slow. I don't know. I'm starting to get a bit better sleep. But yeah. This morning the possum came back, or the rat, or whatever it is in the wall, and yeah. But I'm trying to get back on top of my sleep. Oh, where am I? What am I doing? What else is there to talk about? Anyone got any questions? Or also just try and figure out what I was rambling about before. Or I could sing some dumb song, or we could. I don't know that I want to go read out my Facebook things. Actually, I kind of just want to move on from that incident. It's kind of frustrating to just like not be in control of those kinds of emotions just coming out of nowhere and ruining your day. Yeah. No, because there's like, especially for the type of depression that I'm prone to, I think that's one of the reasons that therapy doesn't really work, because it's not necessarily about things you're thinking. Where in Japan have you visited? Mostly Tokyo, because that's where my family lives there. So they actually live in Saitama, which is a bit north of Tokyo, but it's about a 1 hour train ride. You have to catch a couple of trains, but it's a 1 hour train ride to pretty much the center of Tokyo. The train system in Japan is so good. Sydney's struggling to catch up, although they have got the Northwest Metro now, which, you know, once that's properly finished, I think that'll be really good. It'd be better to have some parallel train lines. Sydney's trains are all centralized, so if something goes down in one part of the network, it can affect a whole bunch of other places in the network, whereas places like Japan have a lot of parallel train lines, so if one goes down, the rest of the network's fine. We need more of that in Sydney. Anyway, mostly Tokyo is where I visited. In 2016, we went to, what's it called? Nikko, which is, I think, north. And they had like this Edo Wonderland. Is it pronounced Edo? I don't know. I get confused with pronunciations because I've heard different things from the Japanese and Aussie sides of my upbringing and whatever. But yeah, we went to that and had traditional things, and that's where I got that shuriken that the bloody flight screening. What are they called? I don't know, my brain's, you know, when you go to the airport and they have to scan all your stuff before you get through the airport, they took away my shuriken that had the engraving I got from Nikko, which was a bit sad, but they let me take pictures of it before I had to give it to them. And then they threw it in the bin, which was sad, and I was depressed at the time, so that wasn't fun. Anyway, Nikko, and then also on that last trip, I also went to Osaka for 2 days, or 2 nights. Yeah, and I caught the bullet train, saving up to visit. Yeah. Oh, I still haven't posted my Tokyo shopping guide, have I? Oh. There's so many things that I have on my list to do, but because I struggle to have energy, and if I don't have energy, it's hard to concentrate, and this list just never gets done. The Tokyo shopping guide's another one that I've already got on Patreon, but it's ugly at the moment. It's just in a Word document, like pages and pages of information about. It's mainly for shopping for gothic clothing in Tokyo, but there's some stuff in there that might be applicable to like just getting around, and then also some of the restaurants. If you go to Tokyo, you know how they have themed restaurants. You want to go to Ninja Cafe, Akasaka. One of those places. There's a Ninja Cafe. My brain's farting on the actual name. The Ninja Cafe and also Vampire Cafe Ginza. Those are the top two. The Ninja Cafe and the Vampire Cafe. They were really good. And if you go to the Vampire Cafe, you have to order the salad. There's a salad that's really cool. No, I didn't go to the robot one. That's not interesting to me. Oh, hey, Jakowski, I haven't seen you in ages. Here in the US, a number of our railways have been turned into hiking trails. Good for hiking and biking, but our mass transit sucks. Yeah, I've heard that in America there's a bit of a struggle to keep up the infrastructure, um, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, I haven't really been keeping up. Like there was that bridge collapse ages ago. Maybe that was last year or the year before. Maybe it was the year before because I think I was depressed and so I ended up looking up a whole bunch of stuff about the engineering of bridges. Public transportation is the worst. Yeah, America's a very car-centric kind of place. Hey, um, when I went to LA, it's just like the traffic was insane, and that was more than 10 years ago. Infrastructure too. Yeah. Um, the interesting thing that's happening in Sydney at the moment is they're putting the light rail back in, so the trams. Sydney used to have quite an extensive tram system, but for some reason, um, might even have been like 100 years ago or whatever, they ripped them all up and got rid of them. And it turns out there actually was a tram system in my own neighborhood. My own neighborhood right now pretty much only has buses. Um, there's some ferries, but like ferries, not the easiest transport to use because you have to catch a bus to get there anyway. Um, yeah, so yeah, apparently we used to have trams, and there were trams going all over Sydney, and then they got rid of them. And then now they're putting trams back in Sydney, but it's only in the CBD, and then I think it goes out to the Uni of New South Wales main campus. I was on the art campus, so it'd be going up to the main campus. Doing like 800, 900. Yeah, maybe it was like a fashion sort of thing, like to have trams and then to rip them up. But trams apparently, like if they had upgraded trams instead of getting rid of them, you can carry more people than like buses or whatever. Bit of a shame. I don't know, like the more I find out about it, the more I'm like, oh, okay, maybe this tram idea isn't so bad. It's just there've been a lot of problems because there's been massive delays and there was a dispute with the contractor, and a lot of businesses, because it's been going on so long. This is in the middle of Sydney CBD. A lot of those businesses have been having trouble because people have been staying away, and I mean, there was never much parking anyway, but no one can find anywhere to park, and it's just like, not really a fun place to go shopping. So, yeah, they're all worried about their businesses being hurt by it. But, with any of these sort of infrastructure things, there's always a certain amount of pain that the society has to go through in order to get a result. So, I mean, like the Harbour Bridge is my favorite example of this sort of thing, because the Harbour Bridge today is just like, it's so important to Sydney and how Sydney operates. And if they hadn't had the guts to do it and make it as big as it is, we would have had a lot of problems in Sydney. Because like the Harbour Bridge was built during the Great Depression, so it gave people a lot of jobs. All those infrastructure projects tend to do that. But they had to, General Motors bought out many trolley systems and raised prices and then shut them down. They wanted to sell cars. Okay, I don't really know enough about that, but yeah. Anyway, the Harbour Bridge, cars and oil. Oh dear, dear, dear. I don't know. America is just like so obsessed with cars. It's I don't like driving, and I hate having to park as well, because then you got to look out for places, and in some places, good luck. Like in the middle of Sydney, you have to go and find a parking station, like an actual building to park in, because on the streets there's just no space. And it always costs something like $15 to just put your car somewhere for a moment. So public transport's better, but I think what some people do is they'll drive to a train station or near a bus stop and then catch public transport the rest of the way, because I think that's just the best way to do it. But occasionally I've had gigs in the city, and I was carrying so much gear, so I had to go to those parking stations. But usually on a Saturday, especially on a Saturday night, the rates were lower, so it wasn't as bad. But yeah, still a pain in the butt, and the city I live is the largest area in the country with the worst public transport. Okay, that was Florida, right? I really don't know anything about Florida. The only places I've been to in America, this is after the HSC. We went to LA, then we took a little trip to Las Vegas and back, and then without car, you have little options for work and recreation. Oh yeah, that sounds like when I was living out west. So I briefly moved in with my ex when we were dating, and God, out west the public transport's a lot worse because I don't know, they've got a train that'll get you all the way into the city in an hour, even though it's miles away. Whereas like here, where I am right now is much closer to the middle of the city. But if you're going by bus and if it's peak hour, it'll still take you an hour to get to the middle of Sydney. Whereas the place out west, like that was ages away, but because they had express trains, you could get to the middle of Sydney in an hour. Same amount of time, but ridiculously different distance. That's why I really wish we had a train here, but none of the politicians have the guts to get anything going. At the very least, they could put trains like further north of where I am so that that traffic could be diverted. I recently saw a video where two American tourists were standing in a parking lot spot in Sydney saying it for their friends. Oh, yeah, that happens occasionally. I haven't seen it that often though. Yeah, and then sometimes you see some of those viral ones and you wonder if they've staged it, but yeah, I think it happens from time to time, but I don't know, it's not that common, because most people know better than to be dickheads like that. Yeah, anyway, I just wish we had trains here, as, yeah. But out west, like, you kind of have to drive places if you want to get anywhere. And that was frustrating because I was trying to find a job out there because I thought I was going to be living there for a long time. So, oh really? Actually, New York, I've heard a lot of people are quite rude and pushy, but I've never been to New York. My parents have been, but I don't know. I just don't have any interest in going to a lot of places overseas. I need to have a specific reason. I find sightseeing a difficult thing to be excited about. Maglev. Oh well, if we live long enough, we might get there. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that'll happen in Sydney anytime soon. We don't have the population to support a lot of that kind of stuff. There's been a lot of talk about getting a fast train from like Sydney to Melbourne or whatever, but because we don't have the population, it can be hard to justify the expense of it, to build the infrastructure. Although there are some like small in-between towns that kind of do want a decent system between, because then they could be the stopover point and improve their tourism. But yeah, I think like places like Japan, the bullet train system works really well because there's so many people that need to be moved to those distances. Whereas in Australia, our land mass is much bigger, but our population is much smaller. Like, you could fit all of Australia's population into Greater Tokyo and still have space. That's how crazy it is. So yeah, we don't have the population to support a lot of infrastructure development. And it's the same thing with like the music industry and creative industries. We don't have the population to really support a strong following, unfortunately. So, I mean, you know, people complain about music dying in Sydney, but to be honest, Sydney's not really the biggest city. So, you know, there's only a certain amount of population. It would help if late night public transport was better, though. That's one thing that annoys me. But anyway, it just sounds like Europe and America have better music scenes just because of population. If there's more people, especially if you have a niche genre, if there's more people, there's going to be a greater percent, like the percentage of people who like that genre might be the same, but the overall numbers will be much larger. What was that I missed? Australian movies. Australian movies for me are a bit hit and miss, but I guess they're not really designed for us Aussies. I don't know. I think when you're exposed to it too much, you sort of get a bit over it. Population density, yeah. Man, no. Aussie movies, they tend to get a little bit too Aussie, and like, I don't know if things have changed, but when I was at school, they just shove all this stuff down your throat, like about the history of Australia, Aboriginal kinds of things. I went to a Catholic school, so the role of religion in Australia's early development and so on. And after a while, you're just like, I don't care anymore. You know, they're trying to expose us to this stuff so that we have an awareness, but they kind of just put people like me off, at least. Okay, I don't actually know any of those. Um, I'm a bit culturally retarded. I just don't pay attention. I've never really paid good attention to what people are what's going on, really. I tend to have my own interests and struggle to be interested in other things. So what like the kinds of TV shows people used to watch when I was younger, and like, you know, even now, like, I don't watch Game of Thrones, for example, which apparently everyone's watching. Um, I don't know. I do my own thing, and then culturally, I sort of don't know what's going on. Although I've been okay at keeping up with memes, maybe because I'm on the internet like that. Yeah, I don't. Oh, I sort of vaguely know Mad Max, but I've never actually watched it and don't really have the desire to. I don't know. Sometimes when things are popular, I just automatically have a tendency to write them off, which is maybe not the best thing to do, but my brain just sort of gets a little bit suspicious when people are really when something becomes really popular. Haven't seen one episode of Game. Yay! um, yeah, no, it gets tiring when people talk about the same stuff all the time. Hey, like everyone's Facebook posts about Game of Thrones, the ending being bad or something. I'm just, oh, okay, whatever. Um, yeah, I don't know. And my brain just has a tendency to want to do things differently. Um, uh, so like even my bonsai tend to go a little bit funny. But when I'm at work, I try and make them proper. Yeah, I've heard that, especially the early stuff had it. Be an experiment, Nicole. Oh god, I don't like Nicole Kidman. I don't know what it is, but just like every time I see her face, for some reason, I'm just really put off, and I've never been able to figure out what it was. For a long time, I'd go to the movies, and there'd be trailers playing, you know, at the beginning of the movie, and every now and then, like, there would be some chick on it, and I'd just sort of automatically dislike the movie, and I eventually found out that all of those movies that I was sort of instantly writing off turned out to be Nicole Kidman, so something about her just puts me off. Um, yeah, so I don't know why, but for some reason I don't like her and I don't find her convincing as an actor. But I don't know if that's a legitimate criticism or if it's just something unconscious that's going on in my head. It's interesting, um, but sometimes you can just have that reaction and not really understand what what it is. So yeah, for some reason I don't like Nicole Kidman. Um, but yeah, I'm not great at enjoying female actors anyway. Um, I think I have some kind of bias there. I tend to be more interested in the dudes. Maybe it's because of the characters they play though, because roles for females tend to be kind of boring or else weak, or if they're strong characters, they'll somehow find a way to sexualize it anyway. Became so fake. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I haven't paid enough attention to Nicole Kidman, so I don't really know much about her. I just sort of have this sort of instinctive reaction not to like her. That's too bad. She's much more talented than Tom Cruise does. I like Tom Cruise though, because he's crazy, so I like crazy people. He's also in a lot of the kinds of movies that I like, and then he does the craziest stunts. And like, I didn't know this for a long time, but you know, so many of the stunts that he does, like, he does them for real as much as possible. Like the one where they strapped him to the outside of a plane and actually flew around with him on the outside of a plane. It was just like, nut job. You have to be crazy to do that kind of thing, hey. And then what, the mummy, they actually got him and the actress, you know, he was apparently like really happy that she agreed to do it. I saw an interview with him. They actually got this plane and they flew up, and then you can do the thing where you fly down for a certain, and for about 30 seconds, the power of Xena, yeah, for about 30 seconds you can get anti-gravity, and that's how they did those scenes in The Mummy where they're in the plane and things are flying around like crazy because it's crashing. And so that anti-gravity effect is real from them doing that, but apparently they had to fly up like maybe it was like 70 times or something to get enough shots to put it together properly. And I'm just like, wow. And they were interviewing him and the actress whose name I've forgotten. I'm sorry, but and they're talking about, like, she actually did really well with it, and they had a lot of fun. There was like one incident where things maybe got a little bit difficult because like something got stuck, and he's like helping her get that off and whatever. She's supposed to be putting on a parachute, and yeah, they did fine, but apparently the filming crew were the ones who felt sick afterwards, because having to go up and having to film everything 70 damn times. I don't know, that scene is just kind of amazing. Although I watched The Mummy maybe on Saturday, I don't remember, and I mean, I was trying to watch it to give myself some inspiration, but instead I ended up nitpicking a lot of the problems with the movie. And then on parallel, yeah. Because in that scene, the sarcophagus is still tied down, okay? And when the plane goes down, you can see like the ground coming up at Tom Cruise in that. And so clearly it's falling in this direction, okay? And they're both going in the same direction. The sarcophagus hasn't moved. So how come they find Tom Cruise and take him to the morgue, but the sarcophagus has somehow landed miles away and not in the main crash area? And I'm just like, I have watched enough air crash investigation to know that that's not how it happens. They would land in roughly the same place. Do you like the ones with Brendan Fraser? No, I don't like his face. I don't know, like he did, I think he overdid the comedy thing maybe and got typecast, and I never really liked him, except was he in like Bamboozled or something? That was a funny movie, but I don't think I enjoyed him in anything else. And The Mummy, okay, so the original Mummy, I think the bad guy was called Imhotep, and I find that just like, no, don't do that to Imhotep. The guy was apparently a genius, like possibly the first person to fucking do brain surgery kind of thing, When I was a kid, I wanted to be an Egyptologist. Yeah, I was interested in the whole Egypt thing too. And so, like, I just got mad at the whole Imhotep thing, because, like, don't fuck that guy. He was brilliant in architectural stuff, yeah, and then also like apparently medical things as well. I don't know necessarily if it was him, because sometimes like in Egypt the mythology surrounding people can tend to fuse, but they found a skull in Egypt that had a hole in it, and at first they thought this person had they had been like hit over the head or something, and that's how they were killed. But when they actually looked at the hole in the skull, they could see that it had started to heal, which was perhaps evidence of like sometimes you can get brain swelling, and to relieve the brain swelling you have to cut a hole in the skull, and it seems to be what's happened there. So they cut a hole in the skull to relieve the pressure on the brain, and it had started to heal before this person died. And that was sort of Imhotep era medical kind of stuff. Does you find it rude how they use existing names of Egyptian pharaohs, etc., and just butcher them for the movies? Yeah, so I was kind of yeah, he made the like sort of prototype pyramid. I don't know what trepanation is. That the medical name for the thing? Anyway, so like the Egyptians had been advancing in things like medical technology. I mean, I don't think it was necessarily great, but there's some evidence that maybe they were doing like basic brain surgery back then. And I think I learned this when I was watching a thing about when doctors are sort of like, they have to do an oath to some Greek dude, and there was someone arguing that it should actually be an oath to this Egyptian dude instead, and it was a really interesting discussion on that. So yeah, I was annoyed about the Imhotep thing, but really I just didn't enjoy, like, mummies as yeah, Hippocrates, or I don't know what the proper pronunciation is, but yeah, I with those first movies, I think because like they overdid the comedy, and I just don't like Brendan Fraser that much, and he was in some pretty bad movies as well, and I don't know, something about his face. I think I'm just really judgmental, and I don't know why. Like, I can look at someone and be like, I mean, For me, I don't really know what an attractive person is, but I know what an average person is and I know what an ugly person is. And sometimes people who are supposedly good looking to others to me will register as ugly, and I'm not sure why that is. It's just maybe my brain's just that weirdly wired up. And I just don't like the guy's face. So it's hard for me to watch his movies. It's the same with the Nicole Kidman thing. I don't know why I don't like her, but I just don't. Maybe if I analyzed it more, I could figure it out, but I just don't care enough to really do that. Whereas I do like Tom Cruise. But that may be because of the movies he's in. Actually, the first like live action, not kids movie thing that I really liked was a Tom Cruise movie. It was Minority Report. Minority Report was the movie that made me think, oh, maybe I do want to go see movies. Anyway, what the Mummy, the early Mummy. So like one of the things that the Tom Cruise the Mummy did well is the humor. Like it's actually got a lot of funny stuff in it, but they don't play it up. It's just like casual things that people are saying, and you're like, oh, that's funny actually, you know. And they don't really pause for effect. Like it's just like, you know, you could completely ignore the humor in it and still just enjoy. I like some view stands. Yeah, there was this weird thing. When I first went to uni, I took a unit in psychology, and one of the exercises, I think the textbook, the fucking huge textbook, it's like a cross between a Bible and a maths book. It's like that kind of hardcover thing of the Bible and chunkiness, but like the size of the maths book is just this huge. A lot of uni textbooks are like that, but this one I think was even hardcover, and it came with a little DVD or CD-ROM or whatever it was, and it had like interactive things to demonstrate different psychological whatevers, and one of them was about attractive people and I think trustworthiness, and you know, supposedly more attractive people are interpreted as being more trustworthy just based on appearance. So if you look at them, you're supposed to rate how trustworthy you think they are based on their appearance, and my results were kind of all over the place. It was supposed to demonstrate that I was more trusting of attractive people, but that's not the result that I got, because I was just like, oh, I don't know about this person. I think I just have like a natural suspicion of people who are like overly attractive for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's because of the way pop culture has sort of played them up, and I just tend to be suspicious of things that are overly popular. Look at these. I haven't actually paid attention to those guys, so I don't know. Like I'm aware that they're famous and sort of vaguely like they come up in discussions now and then, but I don't really know enough. And I kind of don't want to, so I've never really bothered to find out. Fuck, it's getting dark. What happened to my sun? That's really annoying. I'm starting to get cold. And my screen's gone dim too. Anyway, yeah, and then I remember a lecture where they put Brad Pitt on the screen, but at that time I didn't know who Brad Pitt was, and yeah, that was an interesting experience because the way people were reacting, I didn't get it, and he was supposed to be attractive. I think it was, I don't remember. But yeah, no, I had no idea what was going on then. I liked Brad Pitt in Fight Club, but that's because I like Fight Club. So, you know, I think I tend to be a bit biased depending on the movies. Like, if the movie has a theme that I like, well, chances are I'm going to be more forgiving to the actors. Unless they do the movie really badly. If it's a theme I like, but it's done really badly. Like, oh my god, that bloody episode. No, it's not an episode. It's a movie where a movie adapting the Jekyll and Hyde story, but it like with this weird scientific thing where eventually he turns into a giant gorilla, and I'm just like, no, why did you guys do this? Oh my god, no, I should burn that DVD, but I don't know, I just haven't got around to disposing of it. Shit, I'm getting cold, maybe I should move. Do you guys mind if we move? No, if I get like a heater, but I don't know, where could I move to? Probably only my room, really. Anyway, what else? No, with Egyptian stuff in the new Mummy, I think the thing that annoyed me is that they characterized Set as the god of death, which is not accurate. he was definitely demonized by the Egyptians at some point, but I think that was more to do with the conflict between the different kingdoms of Egypt as they fused. And also, Set was, like, I mean, a lot of the gods are gods of many things, but one of the things he was god of was foreigners. And of course, when people are invading Egypt, suddenly you don't like foreigners anymore. And if Set is the god of foreigners, then he represents something that you don't like. So, yeah, and then a lot of those ancient cultures did have some intermixing from time to time. So, I mean, I guess he was kind of given that sort of Satan image, but that doesn't make him the god of death. It's kind of like death isn't necessarily evil anyway, so I don't know. But it worked because I don't know what god they would have picked otherwise. You might have had to go with, which one's the Egyptian name? Is Apep the Egyptian name, or is that the other dude? You know, that dark serpent. I always think of it as Black Dragon though, because I wrote RPGs and sort of turned it into my own character, and that's what confuses me about Egypt anyway. No, they could have used that, but I don't think that quite works as well. You know, the dragon that swallows the sun. Yeah, anyway. But that's kind of warped my head. Wow, it's getting really dark. Why? Oh, it's fucking winter. Yeah, anyway, so they had to create a Satan character. But, oh, that reminds me. Ammit is the one that eats the hearts, isn't it? The little alligator with the hippo butt or whatever it is. I'm sorry, I'm describing it really badly. No, there's actually the serpent. I don't know how to pronounce all the things, so I'm reluctant to try. Yeah, no, I'm not talking about the devourer. I'm not talking about the one that eats people's hearts when they are unbalanced. I'm talking about the one that fights Ra. Set actually defended Ra against it, I think, one time. But anyway, Egypt is interesting because they kind of made it up as they went along. So there's a lot of myths that became fused and that sort of morphed over time. So it depends on what era of Egypt you're talking about some of these stories. Yeah, anyway, interesting. But, no, what was that train of thought I was about to get on? Akhenaten. Oh, okay, so this documentary, that's what I was remembering. I watched this really interesting documentary, it was called Ramesses, Wrath of God or Man, and it's basically a theory to do with Akhenaten, who was the monotheistic Egyptian pharaoh. So he brought in Aten as like the only god, and it also brings in, it weaves in the Hebrew stories. So I haven't been able to stumble on this in a long time because I think they were trying really hard to make you buy the DVD, so they didn't make it very accessible. But when I was watching it, so the basic idea is the Hebrews spend some time in Egypt, which they've documented as well. Are you getting cold, Hopi? We'll put your jumper on later. Okay? Yeah. The Hebrews spent some time in Egypt. There seems to be agreement that that happened. But I think they may have reinterpreted the dates a little. So I don't know if this is really valid theory because I don't remember if their dates are accurate. But their idea was that the Hebrews spent time in Egypt. They found a Hebrew hymn that is surprisingly similar to an Egyptian hymn, I think to the Aten, but I don't entirely remember. But there were two hymns that kind of match up, and they wondered if Hebrew culture had an influence in causing Aten culture to rise up, because, you know, the Hebrews have a sort of monotheistic, I mean, back then they sort of believed that the other gods were real, they just didn't worship them, is the understanding I have. So they worshipped their own god, and it was essentially monotheistic. So they brought that idea to Egypt, and the Aten could, in this theory, could be a parallel to the Hebrew god. And then somehow that's filtered up to the pharaoh. I mean, Akhenaten and his family were a bit odd anyway, so they brought that mainstream and tried to change it to a monotheistic religion. Then Hayes died, and Tutankhamun's, you know, had some terrible accident, I think is how they think he died, and there's no one else to take over, so it goes back to the establishment. And they hate Aten because they had their own shrines and temples where they wanted to have power. Like, if you remove power from all the other gods, then their priests also lose power, so of course they wanted to get it back. And then I don't remember how many years later that Ramses is, but they were sort of looking at the timelines there and whether or not it was actually Ramses or like one of his sons who died. And so, in terms of the Hebrews leaving, the way they explained the 10 plagues is like they were saying, oh, if this thing happens, then that causes this thing to happen, then that causes this thing to happen, and that's how it could have looked like the plague. So I think like the blood in the water was supposedly some kind of red mud washing up from further up in the Nile, maybe as the result of drought or I don't remember. So this red mud washes down, it looks like blood. That kills off a lot of like stuff in the river because it's polluted. So all the locusts and frogs and whatever start leaving the Nile River because they're trying to escape a shitty environment, and so that they all jump off into the Egyptian sort of cities and whatever. Yeah, red algae, I don't know, something like that. Some other kind of phenomenon that's caused the other kinds of phenomenon. And they had some explanation of how they could all sort of be connected in a series of events so that it looks like something like when you document it, you could be like, oh my God, did this, blah, blah, blah. They tried to find a natural explanation for it. And then when it came to the death of the firstborn and the whole Red Sea, I don't remember the exact explanation, but so the Red Sea apparently was a mistranslation of the Reed Sea, which is different. Like the Red Sea is actually a sea. The Reed Sea was just like a sea of reeds that would get flooded every now and then. And the idea was the Hebrews left via the Reed Sea, not the Red Sea. And in the reeds, like because they're long reeds, they can hide. And then the chariots that the Egyptians used couldn't really work very well in the reeds because the reeds would get stuck in the wheels and so on. So that made it easier for the Hebrews to come and kill these people and the people who were chasing them through the Reed Sea and also escape faster. And then the tide would come in and that would flood the reeds, and that's like the water closing in. So there's this interesting kind of theory about all that. This is just off the top of my head what I'm remembering. So yeah, there was a theory about the Hebrews took a lot from the Book of Gilgamesh while they were exiled. I like that there are so many myths from the ancient world in that sort of area that have similarities that you kind of think, you know, they did intermix probably more than we give them credit, and stories would be passed, you know, around. And then, you know, humans all come from essentially the same, yeah, humans all come from essentially the same people, like, you know, we came out of Africa kind of thing. If there were stories like, I don't know when, I have to have a lovely evening and stream. Okay, see you. Thanks for dropping in. If you think about all humans come from one source, right? I don't know when language arose, but people would have been telling stories from an early time, and as they tell more stories, that becomes myth. And then as humanity spreads out, the myths all keep evolving, but they still, some of them still come from the same roots. And so I'm not surprised that there are similarities, particularly in the sort of Africa, Asia, Europe kind of, you know, area, because, you know, they're all connected by land. It's much easier for stories to be transmitted. Whereas you know, with the Americas and, you know, further down to Australia, is a little bit harder to share stories, although they still have similarities and come from similar places. But yeah, no, I think that some stories that have been passed a long time and that have been gradually shifted, they may have some roots in actual historical events and so on. So, and then, you know, some of that explains the similarities and the similar themes. Also, if you consider that humans, like, you know, now we don't have such a struggle to survive because of the way we've set up our cultures. Like, there are people who are struggling to survive, but as a species and a society, it's not really as obvious. We're not, you know, fighting lions or whatever just to have a space to live. But if you consider in the past, like even with like small villages struggling to survive through a winter, for example, there are certain experiences that humans will have had to have faced over and over and over again. And because the experiences are similar, you get similar stories from that as well. Now we're overpopulating. Yeah, well, we'll see how far we can go. There is some speculation that as groups of people become as groups of people become more wealthy, they tend to have less children, partly because the kids will survive longer, like they're more guaranteed to survive, you know, medical technology and all that, but apparently there's something to do with wealth that tends to slow people down with that as well. So we may reach a point of stability where population begins to just sort of stay level. But you know, it's hard to say. You know, it's been such exponential growth. Um, there may, like, you know, we may just keep going until there's no space for anyone and we can't feed everyone anymore. But if we get to a point where we can't feed everyone, you know, I think that automatically creates some kind of equilibrium. We don't have as much loss of life. It's not just about war, though. It's about nutrition and medical technology, keeping people alive for longer. And it's possible to survive with all kinds of injuries now. Whereas in the past, you know, just getting a scrape could be a death sentence because you could have an infection from something that today is quite benign. So there's more to it than just the lack of war. When we were all more nomadic and there was more land, we didn't have to worry about climate change, just move the village, can't move, yeah. With space, like, I don't know that space is a solution. If you think about Mars, Mars is a place everyone wants to go right now. Mars is a shithole. It's not, like, there are a lot of things on Earth that are trying to kill us. But if you go to Mars, multiply that by, I don't even know what number to put on that, because, like, you know, just the radiation from the sun is gonna kill you. The dust particles are gonna kill you. There's nothing to eat. We don't know how much we're going to be able to grow there. You'll have to modify the plants. If you go there, the gravity is different, so you're physically going to develop differently. If people are born on Mars, they're going to develop very differently to the people born on Earth. And because we're evolved for Earth conditions, God knows what kinds of health problems they're going to get living on Mars. We'll probably have to genetically modify our own species to live there. Terraforming take a long time, yeah, unless you're like Elon Musk and you want to bomb the icy poles and try and get water that way, but I don't think that's going to solve things. Mars really needs more of an atmosphere. It doesn't have, I mean, Earth has a magnetic field that helps. Generational spaceships, yes, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how well that all is going to work, because like spaceships, you're still going to need some kind of gravity, and it's going to be difficult to get that going. The only way we know to do gravity is to spin the thing, and which isn't really gravity, it's that centrifugal force or something. There's that alien oxygen machine. Oh dear. I used to play a game called Sim Earth, I think, and you had to terraform different planets and put little oxygen machines around it. God, that was a long time ago. I don't know if you can even find that game anymore. It was on a CD-ROM. Anyway, I just don't know that space is going to be as viable as we think it is, at least in the long term. I mean, so in the short term or even medium term, it's going to be a long time before we properly get space sorted out, and we may destroy ourselves before we get the chance. I haven't seen that movie. The centrifugal force thing is what I'm talking about. You're going to have to build those, and I don't know that these things are really going to work for us anytime soon. I think, like, worth giving it a shot, but I won't be going. I'm going to be staying on Earth. Well, see, we might overpopulate before we get a chance to leave, you know, and we might destroy ourselves before we get a chance to leave. I just don't think that it's going to be as easy as some of us think. Like, everyone knows it's hard, but it's a lot harder than I think it's being sold to people. So yeah, I'm not sure that that's going to work. I think we stand a better chance if we can get our population to stabilize, but that means bringing everyone's wealth levels up to discourage birth rates. But then there's the issue of personal choice, and some people just want more kids. Okay, science fiction. I just don't really see it happening, to be honest. And at least not for a long time. Big outbreak, what, like disease or something. There are all kinds of things that could wipe us from the planet, really. You know, so many things, but what can you do? Not really anything. Like, if all our power goes out, for example, that'll fuck up a lot of more developed countries. The less developed ones might be okay because, they still tend to farm a lot of their own stuff. But they also tend to live in places where it's harder to get by. There's some interesting discussion I heard. Spanish flu, yeah. I read a book based about that, a fiction book based about that. Um, but yeah, no, I remember reading some interesting stuff about why that sort of Europe Asia kind of horizontal line across the earth is where civilization made the most advancements. Um, it was kind of interesting because, and like, what to do with cultural mixing as well. And it had to do because they're distributed horizontally around the earth. I think that helped with the climates being consistent, and they also happen to be across a very green area where it was easy to settle down. Whereas if you're somewhere that doesn't have as good resources to live off and you're constantly moving, it's hard to settle down and develop technology. Um, yeah, and then it was hard to mix technology across to, say, the Americas because there's so much water in between. Um, yeah, some really interesting stuff. Spend less time surviving, you can advance more. Yeah, exactly. So discussions about why Europe, Asia, that kind of area, the Mediterranean. Is that the Mediterranean? Oh yeah, that is. Why those places were more advanced. It's to do with geography. It's really interesting what a role geography plays. Um, yeah. And then, like, with places like Australia, that's just because the Europeans were so determined to set up shop here. Most people didn't look at it that way, yeah. It's really interesting stuff. So if the geography is no good, that can make it really hard to bring everyone up to the same standard of living. But on the other hand, like, sometimes maybe it's not the best thing anyway, because there are unhealthy things about our societies, but then again, the medical stuff probably, and the lack of hunger, like overall, people don't go as hungry in more developed places. Um, hmm. But we have a different set of health problems. There's always different health problems that are popping up. I guess when you live longer, though, as well, there's more chance for certain health problems like cancer. Because if you die early, you can't get cancer. There's some cancers that younger people get, but it's not as common. What about coal mineral resources in here? Yeah. Well, you need to be able to like farm and have agriculture as well. Um, a reliable food source instead of having to wander around. Like, like in Australia, the Elysium. Yeah, I saw that. I forget which one it is, because there's a couple of movies that are kind of similar. But yeah, no, I saw Elysium. I'm pretty sure that's like they have the medical facilities up in the space station kind of thing. I don't remember. I haven't watched many movies in ages. But yeah, no, I don't know what's going to happen to our planet and our species. Because, like, yeah, okay, so it is that movie. But yeah, there's so many ways that we could fuck everything up. But most of us don't really have any power to change anything. We can do things like recycle, but that, like, at the moment, most of that just ends up sitting in a warehouse somewhere because we're not very good at recycling. It just makes you feel good. And then, one person recycling, it really depends on the whole society doing it to have a proper impact. And then it's the politicians who ultimately make the decision anyway. So, uh-oh, what just happened? Is my internet getting a bit dodgy? I've still got 41% and the internet is apparently strong. Make your, when you're young, feel like you, oh, when you're young. Yeah, well, I think, like, you know, as you take in information, you think, oh, I want to make a difference. But then as you take in more information, you start realizing it's not that easy. And there's so much more to think about. I get a little bit frustrated with some of the activist movements, I gotta say, because some of them don't take into account all the factors and they think it's easier than it is. The more you see, there's not much you can do. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things that we should look at, but like as an individual, what can I do? Express my opinion and hope it spreads far enough to actually influence someone? I don't know. Um, and then, even if you can convince your own government, there are other governments, and everyone has their own interests. And, you know, it would only take one nuclear war to seriously fuck up whatever we build. That's my country mixing trash in the recycling. Yeah, there's a lot of that. And there's a lot of confusing information about what can and can't be mixed. Um, yeah, recycling's difficult. And I remember like a long time ago, the main thing that is definitely worth recycling was aluminium because it's so hard to extract from the ground that recycling aluminium is actually the easier option. But for things like paper, you know, growing trees isn't as hard. I don't know, it can be a struggle to justify the recycling and then the problems with the quality of the product at the end of it. It's a tricky thing. I mean, ideally, you'd want to try and recycle, but yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it's just better not to use stuff in the first place. A long time ago, they thought that computers would stop us from using too much paper because everything would be digital, but no, we still print out everything anyway. Um, and print media has its own effectiveness that digital can't do. Oh, no, yeah, no, yeah, it has to be extracted, and that's one of the things that makes aluminium difficult to get from a natural source instead of just recycling what's already been processed and mostly purified, even once it's been through the trash, you know. Um, so yeah, there's that. Um, yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what world leaders do. I'm frustrated with China, I gotta say, because I think China could be an amazing country, but their leaders are just too obsessed with power and not giving it up, and very rigid. I mean, you know, Tiananmen, uh, the Tiananmen anniversary is just kind of a coincidence, but you know, I've been I think about China every now and then. I'm just like, they could be so good, but China's government is just not trustworthy. Bauxite, yeah, that's the one. Ah, yeah, press the wrong thing. Brown chalky road needs electricity. Yeah, that's the thing. Bauxite, or however it's pronounced. I don't know. Yeah. Whereas other things, I don't know. There's not enough of an industry to justify it. There's not enough demand. I don't know. It's just about trying to get rid of the waste, really. Um, yeah, I think in Europe, there's some places where they just burn a lot of the waste to create energy with it. And there was someone who was trying to do research about whether we should do it in New South Wales. That's the right pronunciation. Awesome! Yeah, there was someone who was doing a survey about whether or not we should do waste burning in New South Wales as a way to get rid of all that product and also create some energy. Geology major. Oh, awesome. I hope I don't talk too much bullshit when I go on about geology then. Geology, geography, and all that kind of stuff. I used to really like volcanoes though, obviously, like the destructive kind of thing. I used to be really into natural disasters. But that interest kind of died a little bit when the whole destroyer thing fucked off a few years back. And I haven't been able to get back into it. Because anytime it comes back, it's very chill, like it doesn't influence me that much. But yeah, no, I used to be right into all that. Cyclones and yeah, volcanoes and how tectonic plates do stuff, and fossils of dinosaurs and things, and yeah, I used to be right into that stuff, but it's been a long time. I used to think I wanted to be a paleontologist, but I've been through like phases of wanting to be every kind of profession almost. paleontologist and trying to learn how to pronounce all different kinds of things. But I used to read off books, so I don't know how they were actually pronounced in person. I was just reading and trying to read it out and work out for myself what it would be pronounced as. I tend to do a lot of reading, so. Hawaii, California. Oh, does California have something underneath it? Apparently in Melbourne, apparently a lot of Melbourne is on top of an old volcanic crater or something. And maybe there's still some activity in the ground, but it's been dormant for a long time or whatever. I don't know. I heard that. I don't know if it's true because I didn't actually go and look it up, but I saw a thing about Melbourne supposedly having an old volcano under it. But Australia is very tectonically stable. We don't really get earthquakes or anything. I think like many years ago, Mum sensed an earthquake because she's Japanese, so she's much more in tune with that. In Japan, they have so many earthquakes that they just know what it feels like, whereas in Australia we don't. So Mum felt what like a tiny earthquake, whereas everyone around her thought it was just like a big truck passing by making things rumble a bit. And it turned out that all the way in Newcastle, which is a city sort of north of Sydney, there had been an earthquake in Newcastle, and she had felt it all the way in Sydney. Uh-oh, she's here. I gotta go.